All right, let's be honest for a second. We're going to talk about that one little habit that pretty much all of us have, but almost nobody likes to admit to talking to yourself. And what if I told you it's not just some weird quirk? What if it's actually your most underrated superpower?
You know the scene, right? You're stuck on something, maybe it's a piece of code, a really tricky email, or just a big life decision. And suddenly, you're on your feet, pacing, maybe even gesturing, and explaining the entire situation out loud to absolutely no one. And then it happens. It's almost like magic. Halfway through your own monologue, the answer just clicks. The fog of confusion lifts, and boom, there's the path forward. You didn't need someone else's advice after all. You just needed to hear yourself think.
Yeah, that little moment of sudden insight, that's not magic. And it is definitely not a coincidence. It's a feature, not a bug, in how your brain is actually designed to work. So let's do a little reframe here. Let's stop calling it talking to yourself and start using a term that's a bit more accurate, vocalized thought. Because what's happening in those moments, it's not weird, it's literally how your brain is wired to untangle complexity. And this quote, it just nails it. See, when you speak your thoughts, you're doing so much more than just making noise. You're actively firing up the parts of your brain that deal with logic, with structure. You are, and I mean literally, forcing your own thinking into a state of clarity. Okay, here's an analogy for you. Think of your brain as this ridiculously powerful computer, like a high-end operating system. Well, vocalized thought is like a hidden feature, a built-in diagnostic tool you didn't know you had. You're running a program that takes the jumbled mess inside your head and spits it out in a clean, orderly, and, well, understandable way. And by activating this feature, you unlock some pretty incredible abilities. We're talking about 3 distinct superpowers that you probably didn't even know you had. So let's break them down one by one. All right, superpower number 1 is all about creating logical structure out of pure mental chaos. It's kind of like becoming a master organizer, but for your own thoughts. So think about it. Inside your head, thoughts can be a total whirlwind of disconnected ideas. But the second you try to explain something out loud, you have to put those ideas in order. You're forced to build a sentence, then a paragraph, a narrative, and in that process, the gaps in your logic become impossible to ignore. You'll literally hear yourself say, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. And just like that, the confusion starts to clear up. Okay, on to superpower number 2. Now, this one sounds a little fancy, I'll give you that, but trust me, it is an absolute game changer. We're talking about enhanced metacognition. So what is metacognition? Well, the simplest way to put it is thinking about your thinking. It's the amazing ability to kind of step outside of your own head and watch your mental gears turn from an objective point of view. It's the difference between being in the middle of a storm and watching it on the weather report from a safe, dry distance. And talking out loud, well, that's the ultimate metacognition hack. Why? Because it takes that silent internal storm of thoughts and makes it physical. You can actually hear your own logic. This lets you catch yourself using flawed reasoning, spot your own hidden biases, and basically course correct before you make a big mistake. And that naturally brings us to our third and final superpower, self-pattern recognition. This is where vocalized thought goes from solving just a single problem to actually upgrading your entire decision-making process over the long haul. See, when you make a habit of talking through your challenges, you start to notice, well, patterns. You'll hear yourself making the same excuses over and over again, or falling into the same emotional traps. This whole process is you activating your own self-pattern recognition software. And once you can see those behavioral loops, you can finally break them. And that leads to way, way smarter choices. Okay, so we've just discovered you have these 3 incredible superpowers just waiting to be used. The big question is, now what? Because, theory is great, but putting it into practice is where the real magic happens. So here's your mission. It's actually a super simple 3-step process. The next time you feel stuck, first, just isolate the one complex problem you're trying to solve. Step 2, start explaining it out loud. Explain it to an imaginary friend, your dog, a rubber duck on your desk. It seriously doesn't matter who. But step 3 is the crucial part. You have to actually listen to what you're saying. Listen for the pauses, the illogical jumps, and those little sparks of sudden clarity. Because at the end of the day, this whole thing isn't just a quirky little problem-solving trick. It's a fundamental practice for gaining genuine clarity and, frankly, a bit more control over your own mind. You're taking all that internal noise and transforming it into external, actionable intelligence.
And that really just leaves us with one final, very important question. Now that you know about this power you've had all along, what's the first complex, tangled up problem you're going to take on? Just by talking it out.